Okay. 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 1. Hello, hello. Okay, let me know if you can hear everything right so we can start this week's live solutions. Welcome everyone. This is the English version of it. Tomorrow will be Spanish. And it's been a long time since I've been doing these ones. I think I've been improving in many things. I think in my responses, probably in my language, I hope. So the main goal of this, if you've never attended to, is just asking me some questions about anything you want, really, and related to whatever I'm throwing in the channel. Since you know, your bass covers, guitar, even drums, and some theory, and the latest thing that I just uploaded, and that I maybe want to talk more about, you know, in between, maybe giving you some tips, kind of like in the middle of the stream, probably. Just talking a little bit about the lead sheet and the song by Elvis that I uploaded, that I really think it goes in a different level of knowledge that maybe some of you don't have yet, but it's easy to achieve once you get the idea of working with this. And I think, and my decision of making that section is it's just trying to open some doors in some aspects that this channel maybe it centers more in a more easy to read things, trying to not make it complex in the conventions, you know, of the popular music on the outside world that you maybe will be confronted. And it's been my case in many instances that people have their lead sheets with some chords, and they send it to you, or they tell you, okay, let's play this thing, and you have that, and you have no idea how to start. You just have the chords, hopefully some melody, hopefully some ideas of how the song goes, and let's do it. And that I find it really interesting, because it opens your ideas into improvising and into going into the wild and just saying, okay, let's play this, and it's an A, what can we do? We can just play this, or we can just play many things in it that maybe we can talk a little bit about. But first I will try to focus on how to read all of these things, okay? So maybe I will stop in the middle of all of this to give you some ideas of that. But I will be in the first times of this just listening to you guys. So thanks to everyone attending. I am so blind. I need to get a little bit closer to the screen. Okay. Argentina. Llegó la gente. Hello, David CM, Juanito Aguirre, um, Sonic Darks. Okay, you can let me know if you have some problems with the stream, especially on audio, and maybe some lag. I don't know. But do we have some questions over here to start? To start warming up a little bit. Tito Miranda, I've been playing guitar for 2 years. I've been looking to play bass. How much money would I be looking to spend to start? I can hear you fine, by the way. Thanks. Well, that's a usual issue to converse about, I say. But it can be really cheap if you want. You can just go and find some second-hand instrument, and you don't even need an amp if you're in a silence enclosure of study, and maybe you can even buy a little audio interface and getting the sound in your headphones just from the computer, and there you have it. You can practice along with it, and it shouldn't cost you really that much. Okay. I hope you can find really cheap instruments still in any part of the world, and I like that because you don't really need to figure out how to get the best instrument when you're just starting. It's nice to know the limitations of your instrument, and for that you need to have some of them. Okay, maybe starting with the perfect instrument kind of like will pamper you in a way of beginning with the best, and usually that I think is maybe not the best idea. Nothing will happen if you happen to have good instruments. Of course, it will be great, but I like that struggle sometimes. That struggle that will give you more merit on getting a new instrument. You know. So okay, more questions. Greetings to I0 covers. Eres grande, carnal. Saludos desde México. Hey, could you show how to make double thumb on bass? Jose Francisco Diaz. That is one that is really usual, and I gotta say I'm not very accustomed to do double thumb. I just know the technique that goes in, and I know that for me it's really uncomfortable to this day to do it. But we always talk about slap, right? And getting a good sound on it. And once you manage to get good sound and all of that, there's two ways of getting rid of your movement to not get stuck with your thumb in the string, right? We usually go and play and just lift our thumb out of the sound. But many people also try and make this, just slapping and at the same time resting your thumb in the next string. That will give you some new tools to work on, and that is the use of the double thumb, because you go and play, rest over here, and the movement up goes from here, and just with the tip of your nail, I would say, more like your nail and your finger, so it sounds more aggressive. You just go and lift it up, so that you can achieve in technique. I think not with that much difficulty. Just with some good and tense a little bit, just a little bit of a tenser thumb, so it doesn't go that blunt into the string. Just go in and out. For me, I don't have the best nails, I would say. I think I have really bad nails in terms of hardness of them, and for me it still hurts a little bit. Maybe you get accustomed to it, but for me, I never liked it that much. But it opens yourself into more slap options, right? Because you have a downstroke, and then you have an upstroke, and then you have your pops and your middle finger pop, and then you have your full four note system that is very common. So you can play just slapping, thumb, index, middle. And if you manage to do that in good time, you can achieve many things, really. So you can practice something like that. And doing it with all the strings. But yeah, I usually recommend you to go and check out Victor Wooden, because he is the best on that. You have some videos he explaining all of that, and I think it will cover more ground than me, because I don't think I'm the best on advanced techniques, I would say, on slap. Maybe it will surprise you the amount of slap that I don't do, because I usually don't slap that much. But you need to know it, right? You need to know how to do it. So what am I missing over here? Can you explain scale modes? I like that one. Okay, I'm going to try to explain that again, because I usually explain it. And I really want to have a board or something to write on, or something to have a more flexibility on writing things. But I'm going to explain it to you with the instrument in this case, okay? So the question goes into scale modes, and that is quite easy to understand, okay? You just need to know what is a major scale, and most of us already know it if we don't even know that we know it, right? Because you're involved in maybe in your music lessons from school or whatever, and the famous ABC that goes into do re mi, or goes into C D E F G A B C, right? That is kind of like the ABC of knowing some music, and probably your music teacher, if he did good, will teach you some of that. So we're accustomed to all of that in our brains, really. The major scale, it's in unescapable, I would say. So that is your major scale, right? From C to C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. 8 notes that goes that can be started from any part, from any other note, any of the 12 notes that we know. And for that function, we created things like the circle of fifths or fourths, just to create yourself a more easy tool to understand how we can make this in other keys, maintaining the same intervals and creating that scale that goes into a lot of basic knowledge. Because from this scale we will develop the minor scale, we will develop other scales, and the most important, I would say now, it's knowing what modes are. And modes are simply just thinking about the scale grades or the scale functions, okay? And once you know that, it's just in simple ways starting the same scale but from other focal point, from other tonic in this case, right? When we play a major scale, our tonic is C. So if we want to start from any other note from the scale and create that note, the new tonic, that will be a mode. That is just the main definition, I would say, of it. So modes can be applied into whatever scale, really. Whatever scale you want. you can create modes of it, because it's just that, starting from a different note that is the common, right, the original. So a blues scale can have modes, a melodic scale, a harmonic scale, minor scale can have, all of them have modes, and from that mode comes another scale that has other functions and other chords built on top of the notes, okay? So if we take it into the major scale, the most important thing is knowing, okay, from C, right? Now we can take the same 8 notes, but starting from D onto D. So it's... And that is the mode starting from D, and that is the Dorian mode, right? We already, maybe some of you know the name. And so knowing those uses of different modes will give you some idea of the structure of it, but it will not give you some idea of the functionality of it. So for that, you always need to go and compare these scales into what it was before, into the major scale or the minor scale, right? So there are major or minor modes, all depending on if the scale has a minor third or a major third to begin with, right? So this is a major scale because of the major third, and your minor scale from C, it contains a minor third. So from C minor or C major, you have that differences. Same differences of comparison you will need to understand while getting into modes. So for example, I'm not going to go through all the modes because it will take me, I think, too much, but let's take, for example, Dorian minor. The Dorian mode is minor because we are starting with a minor third over here. So the comparison goes from Dorian minor into the minor natural scale or Aeolian. The natural minor scale is also a mode. It's from A to A. So it's already a mode if we're not altering any notes in it. So you have this is your Dorian scale and this is your minor scale. So if we play it slow, minor natural and Dorian. It's just one note on difference, and knowing that one note, that is usually 1, maybe 2, compared to the scale that is minor or major, will give you the idea, the real idea of what is the note that we need to alter to create a Dorian sound. And for this case, a Dorian minor scale is just a minor scale with a raised 6th note. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 raised. And that into appliance we will already understand with some funk actually, and doing something like this. 6th altered. If we were to play the same lick in a minor scale, it would be something like this. So it loses kind of like the idea of it. So that is a good way of understanding, for example, Dorian. That is one of the most important modes. Then you have Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. All of them with the different note of approach into tonic. So it's starting from D, from E, from F, from G, from A, from B, in the same order. Okay, you can search for all of this really if you find modes, but many people don't get to understand the most important thing, and that is understanding the note that makes the scale what it is, right? So that is important to already begin working on. compare it with a major scale or with a minor scale. That's it. I don't know if I extended too much, sorry. But this is really interesting because you can apply all of this into your sound, right? And you will understand if I'm playing an A minor and I play it with a sharp F, I'm playing it quite Dorian, right? So it's different to play a lick that is just minor natural, something like this. Maybe with some blues, right? Some passing notes, but then you add this. And then you have a difference in sound, right? It's different. It's more in the roots of funk, because there it comes some ideas. Actually, when you want to improvise in some blues funky rhythm, you're usually messing up with all of this. It's with your blues scale, you already have a lot of liberties. You can play even a minor third and a major third, and maybe it will sound cool if you do it with the right tension. So you have this note, 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 this note. A lot of chromatism that goes into blues scale. Then you can add the other notes that you skipped. And if you add even a little bit of a Dorian with the F sharp, you have more notes even to improvise with, to create little things. Just thinking in maybe A minor played on a guitar, or A major, A7, and you can play with all of those tensions. Okay, so a little tip to understand and to close all of this. Usually when you're confronted with a minor 7 chord, it may be a minor natural scale, it may be a Dorian scale, most of the time, depending on the function of it. I'm going to talk about it maybe some other time, but if you're confronted with a 7 chord, it's usually a mixolydian. And if you're confronted with a major 7, it's usually or Lydian or just Ionian, or the major scale, right? So all of that we will try to analyze, looking at some of the things that I'm gonna be doing, like the lead sheet that that we were talking about. Okay. But that's it. Sorry if I go too theoretical about it. You can still ask me things related to the instrument, to how to play it, right? I always understand that some people still have things to struggle with the instrument itself to begin worrying, right? With more theory, they still need to know how to play first, and that is, it takes some time. So I'm here for that most of the time. Okay, don't worry about that. Don't worry about seeing too much new information on the channel, because I will always go back to you in the beginnings. So only in English for today, okay? Save your ones in Spanish for tomorrow, if you can understand me, okay? Okay, let's see, more questions over here. Will you do any Dream Theater covers? I really struggle to find good ones. Sure, I think I have some songs from them to work on, from Patreon actually, that I need to begin working on really soon. Okay. Played on an LTD vintage 204 for 6 years now. It's okay, but tried a Fender P-Bass a year or two ago. it was like heaven. Anyways, you can manage on a cheap bass if it's set up right. That is important, right? And that is great, because when you find yourself playing a really really good construction of an instrument, you will really appreciate the difference, and you will be, I think, marveled, a little bit excited probably, of just playing this really great instrument. And you will improve, right? If you save enough money, or if you have the opportunities, maybe you will improve. But don't get too sucked too sucked into the idea of always improving your gear, and your gear, and the gear, and the gear freak, and the gear whatever. I would say I don't like that much. I prefer being a music freak than a gear freak, or whatever, gear geek, or whatever denomination that you have for it. I don't really like it, because gear will not make you a better musician, and anyone knows that. It's all about you. So more questions, probably. My amp is buzzing when I have treble on and I can't play anymore. Oh, my lights went down for a minute. Sorry. If you see that something happens, let me know that I will die. This is a really earthquakey country, by the way. So I'm always thinking about an earthquake coming and fucking all up. My amp is buzzing when I have treble on and I can't play anymore. And that is a usual thing with amps that are not that expensive, or that have a lot of capacity in watts, really, in size. You raise some of the treble and it's just a mess. And that comes from even the construction of the instrument. If it has more or less buzzing into the circuits, it depends on many things. But I don't know. I usually encourage people to, if you're not going to play in a live gig for now, maybe consider getting an audio interface and hearing yourself via your computer. It will help you into recording yourself. It will help you into many things that you can't really achieve with an amp, and an amp will be more expensive, I would say. So if you're not really prepared to go into gigs now, you maybe consider starting with that. And of course, you will need to get some gear if you want to play with your pals, right? Michael Berry says what kind of amp, but he doesn't specify really nothing about anything of his questions, so I don't know what you mean with that. What kind of amps do you use? That is a thing that I think I can respond to, because I don't use any amps really, and that is the thing why I'm most of the time recommending you to go more digital for now, because I think you will encounter many bad sounding amps if you're not willing to go the next level into money, I would say. And I have one actually that I don't like, and I don't have the opportunity to have an Ampeg SVT or something like for the big boys, but I have the opportunity to have Ampeg on amplitude, and it actually sounds really good for me. And then that is all digital, so I don't manage with any amps. And if I wanted to record an amp, it would be actually more difficult for me, because when you record an amp, you need to have a good room that is built to place your amp, and to have not that many reflections. You need a good microphone to record the sound of the amplification, and that gives you other level of things that you need to expand on, or you need to get worried while you're playing. And for me, I would say I will always prefer to do this, just recording myself directly and then reamping with some plugins and something like that. Of course, if I have the best hardware in some later time, I will be using it for sure. Hardkey is not that bad, so I think the problem maybe come from your bass. I don't know. Usually a lot of buzzing and electric sounds come more from the construction of the instrument, or even not having good ground for the electricity to go into the ground. What kind of audio interface should I get? And I always recommend Focusrite. And there's the 2i2 that I use. It's just two ins and two outs. One for me most of the time bass. Maybe when I'm recording something stereo, it's important to have two ins for that. And it's not that expensive. It's really, compared to the higher ones, it's not that expensive. It usually comes into more money when you want to have more ins or more outs, something like 8 in 8 out or something like that. And I'm actually thinking on improving on that, just to record the full band at the same time. For that you need at least 8 or more insertions of the cable, right? But there's even cheaper options from Focusrite. M Audio and Focusrite, I would say they are the most achievable good sound. I don't trust that much in others, but there are some other options. I think Tascam and some others, and that you can begin with. And if you have less money, you can actually buy yourself a little thing that just has a plug-in and it's USB, and there you will already sound a little bit good. It will not be the best, but you can begin with the worst things, no problem. Yeah, I like that that specification of what we're talking about. Sorry if we're not playing that much. I will play a little bit. That's it. You think it's the pickups? Oh yikes. It might be. I don't know. Some basses that I actually played, they really have bad circuitry, and that affects a little bit of your sound. I was already talking a little bit about double thumping, and I just said that I'm not the best, I would say, for that. I actually recommended you to go and search for Victor Wooten double thumping. Write that on YouTube, and you will have a really good lesson of it. And I prefer to be honest when I'm not the best on telling you something. I'm not going to create myself a reputation of something that I don't know, right? Last one, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the thing that I wanted to talk about, and it's the lead sheet thing. How long did it take you to get slapping down? I gotta be honest, I remember picking up the instrument for the first time and already wanting to go and slap it, because it's so attractive at the first time, right? It's so great, it sounds so expressive, and it sounds so powerful, and you can actually hear it when someone's playing it, besides just playing with fingers. If the mixer did a good job, right? And you have Flea, and you have all of the guys that are doing it, so you want to do it. And I would say it took me some little time to trying to do something like this, but after a year or so, I wouldn't say I was sounding good with my execution. And that is the thing that is important. First of all, consistency. And playing this at the first steps for you will be something like this. All of the strokes will be different, and it will be difficult to achieve same strokes with the same accuracy and the same strength. And for you to only practice something like that will improve your sound overall, I would say. Knowing how to manage to get even sounds even from the slapping and the popping, because the popping needs to be a little bit more compressed by you compared to the slap, so they both sound kind of like similar in intensity. A pop will always sound with more intensity because it's more aggressive, right? So you need to manage that. So that same lick that I'm trying to play, it may sound really bad if you're just starting with it, and you may get a little bit desperate, but it's just consistency and trying to practice your consistency on little exercises like this. Just and maintaining that, and you will know when you're doing it right, because the string resonates in different ways. It resonates a little bit better. So remember, your wrist, really important. From your wrist comes the real intensity that you want to put in. Accuracy in the most protuberant part over here in your joints. Okay? Right with the bone into it. And I think those are the most important, but the most important thing is also knowing what are you doing when you're finishing up your slapping. When you're finishing your slap, where does your hand goes? What is the movement that your hand is making? And that, I would say, it's even more important than all of the later two examples that I gave you. It's knowing what to do when you retire your strength. So it's different just doing this, but keeping your finger over here. That will not make any sound, right? Because you're stopping the sound of the string. But if you retreat fast, that will even give you more strength, because it makes kind of like that whip motion that you need. And that's why I always compare it with martial arts and whatever. You already know me. So that is one, and the other is just resting here. For both of them you need speed, and speed is important, okay? So you can practice something like this, maybe giving it a little bit of a groove, I don't know. And switching strings will be difficult for you, for sure. And for that, again, accuracy and looking at what you're doing for the first time. Okay, now it's not a necessity for me to look where I'm pointing at with my thumb, but it may be a necessity for you at first, just to understand. There I need to put my finger. There I need to put it. Let's repeat it. Let's go. Now with the A. Even the D. And even G. skipping strings, even with some exercise like this, with the octaves, G, G, D, no, sorry, C, C. To create more spatial memory, I would say. So for that spatial memory to achieve, you need a lot of work. But after that, you will not think about it. You will not think, I need to place my finger there. You will just do it, right? It's just the marvels of your body and muscle memory, really. Right? Okay. Let's see, more questions. Oh yeah, I was going to go. Let me go into it before I forget a little bit of how to read all of these things. So let's go into this view that I want to have, so we can view a little bit of this that I want you to understand, really. Okay. In case you have some doubts, this is the thing that I just uploaded. You can see it in full form if you watch the video, but the song, maybe some of you know it, and this is a way that you maybe will be confronted if you're in a band, if you're into jazz, or if you're into playing in a big band, or with some teacher that is making you read all of this, because this is the main way of treating a full band and telling them, okay, let's play this, let's go. And that is the beauty of the standard, the jazz standard, even, is that you can actually have a book and just go in it, and they say, okay, let's play this one. I don't know how to play it, but I have all the information over here, so let's try to make it, and let's do it, and that's it. So I like that information that you have really condensed over here. For that, you have just melody and chords on top, right? So from here, we can actually know a lot of things that we need to know to begin reading all of this. So let's begin with the starting parts. The title, of course. This is important. Is that your tempo? Some guys actually can know just from the tempo. Even they can know, okay, this is my idea, right? And there is some good exercises for that. For example, this means that you have 67 beats per minute, right? So we all already know more or less how to count your seconds, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, something like that. That is your usual second counting. Probably a little bit more, a little bit less. You can check your watch if you want, but that is 60 beats per minute, just by definition, because you have 60 seconds in a minute, right? So that is 60 beats per minute, your counting of the seconds. So if you know that, you can actually go and say, okay, 1, 2, 3, okay, so this is 67. You need to go a little bit more, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and you can begin playing with that. If you have 120, you have the double of a second counting, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, maybe something like that, right? I'm not an expert, but there's people that can actually get the whole experience of 67 beats per minute. That is almost like perfect pitch, but in other ways. But for now, it's just knowing that it's a ballad and it's slow, and let's play it that way, right? We don't know anything about the song. Let me know if you're following me, okay? How to read the real book. That is what we're trying to do right now, because this is more like what you will encounter in a real book. Melody, chords, and that's it. Okay, so let's try to move on. save your questions, let them over here, and I'm going to answer all of them probably later. So let's go more into this. Okay, then you have this. Already indicates to you that we're in your usual treble key, as you call it, I would say, or bass clef or treble clef, I think you call it. We call it key of G. That is the definition of us in Latin America, llave de sol. But it's clef or treble clef or bass clef for you. So now we're confronted with the singing voice. This is the singing voice, the melody of it, and that will be for the real books or for fake books or whatever. Probably will be the solo instrument or the leading instrument or the melody instrument, like usually some brass instrument, saxophone, flute, your guitar, even piano if he's only playing it with piano, guitar. I already say guitar. All of the the leading instruments, not bass most of the time, right? Of course, you will have a bass solo that no one will pay attention to, probably. But yeah, so you have that, and then you have those two things that I hope most of you already know, that it means the key. Okay, all of that is before your time signatures indicates your key, all of the sharps or flats that you will be confronted with. Here it comes in game, knowing your circle of fifths, because that will give you the idea of how key works. Okay, so your major scale and C has no alterations. You just have C, D, F, G, A, B, C. Nothing in between to create that scale. But if you go, let's say, into G, that is the neighbor key in the circle of fifths, you have this same model, but you have now a different note. You have G, A, B, C, D, A, no, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Sorry, I'm not that good with knowing the notes in American, saying them. So you have F sharp. That is the difference to create the same thing. So for the key of G, you will need F sharp. So for knowing that it's in G, we're talking about just major keys, but always remember that a major key has always implied a minor key that comes from the same alterations. In this case, no alterations for C major, and the relative minor that comes from A, the sixth up or the minor third behind it will let you know that A minor is the relative minor key from C, always a minor third below. That is your minor key, A minor, with no alterations. Same goes for G with your F sharp, but your relative minor is A minor. And for that you need F sharp. So if you go one more, you will need two sharps, and that is this case. And that case is for D major. Again, going into the circle of fifths, you have C, D, F, G, 5, fifth, G, A, B, C, D, and goes into D. And D major needs, for a major key to be created, needs F sharp and needs C sharp, F sharp and C sharp. So this will give you the idea of what the key is, and also the chords that are in will give you some of the idea if you are in the major key or the relative minor key. In this case, the major key it's D, and the relative minor comes from a minor third below. In this case, B minor. So how do I understand it's in B or it's in D major. I don't know. B minor, D major. I can't know just by knowing this. But I do know if I know the cadences, if I know where a chord is the final chord, when I'm resting a chord. And those rests always come in the end of phrases or in the end of the whole song. And in this case, we're finishing in D major. So that also gives you some of the idea that this is 100 or I don't know 99% probably in D major, right? Because we're finishing in D major. That wouldn't be the case in all of them. Not every song will finish or begin in the chord that is the key, in the tonic chord, the first chord. But for this song, it is. You have D beginning, D finishing, right? And in the end of phrases, you have D, except for the B part that kind of like it goes into a different place. But after all, it also finishes racing into a D. So this is D major. This is important because you now understand that your main context will be knowing your D major scale to play all of this, right? And for that, you already have the first step. Okay, let's stop on this. I'm gonna see some of the comments. Okay, some repeat signs for repeating melodic, left, right. Excellent. I liked your comments, Michael Berry. I'm going to go with many things now. Everyone pays attention to my bass solos, right? No, I'm just saying that because it's kind of like the usual thing that people say, but I really find it interesting playing around with bass solos because there's a lot of thinking behind it. Because you need to maintain your harmony while you're trying to play some melody, because you're the main harmonic instrument in jazz particularly, or the main stability instrument. And usually in a bass solo they kind of like leave you alone doing your own thing, and that is sometimes difficult because you need to understand, okay, I need to know my chords, I need to know my chord tones, my scales, arpeggios, and you know all the things. So after that you have this C. This C in modern times usually it's it actually comes from old times, really old times, and a C meant that this was just 4/4, your usual 4/4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. That will indicate you that these are half notes and whatever, right? So let's try to follow the melody and not go into the chords yet. You have some silence, then you go and whatever, right? You know the song. So about reading all of this, I always, and I think I never said this, but I never said that you shouldn't read sheet music. Okay, this is important for you to already begin understanding. I know tabs are much easier to follow, but it's important to know a little bit of what this note is, and what are all the notes. So since we went and played and talked about the key, all the Fs and all the Cs on this score will be sharp unless it tells you otherwise. That is important because this F is sharp by definition. No, not because you need to put it like this. It's sharp. It's just because it's in the key. So all your Fs and all your Cs will be by default sharp, right? So we can actually play a little bit of this. What else? C sharp, F sharp, F sharp again. So you can already at least know the melody of it if you go and read a little bit of this. So it's important to begin with. Maybe you know your triplets. It's just making into the melody, right? Maybe some other time I will talk more about how to write rhythm. But let's focus on this. I'm assuming you already know a little bit of this. But even for the bass job, this is already not that important. We will be focusing more on the chords, right? That in the melody. But you need to be always aware of the melody, because the melody is the thing that comes into you, the first and most important part. So what is this? This is a repetition mark. It's just that simple. That means that you need to go and play those four, then repeat, and then continue, right? This is important. Again, there you have the lyrics, the first time, the second time, already put into A part compared to the B part. That comes in a difference usually with the melody and the harmony. And then you go through it, okay? Playing. We're going to talk about chords later, but then you go and go more melody and then repetition. Always be aware that you have repetition and you may forget it when you get to the end, but you go and go, play, and there you have this repetition, but with a 1 over here in a box and a 2 in a box. That means that the first time you go over here, but after repetition you go back into your repetition, play again, but when you're here you skip this and you go into the second part, right? That is just the main thing. It's not that difficult to understand. And then it finishes. That is the melody, right? That is your structure of the song. It's quite simple. But then you have the chords, and that is the other thing that is important, okay? I will pause a little bit again. Okay. It is common for just modulates key through the circle of fifths. It is quite common, so it's important to understand all of that, understand the circle of fifths, understanding neighbor keys, because modulating into a neighbor key, it's easier because you're just adding a new sharp, a new flat, and for that it's important to know your circle of fifths also. You can modulate into your relative minor or into modal interchange from C major, for example, into C minor, and that is accepted most of the time, even if it has a lot of extreme flats goes into, or alterations in general. It will usually end up being great because it's kind of like a change of texture into a more dark tone from C major into C minor, for example. Modulating is another thing that maybe we need to talk. In this case, I'm not quite sure we're modulating anytime. We're just using some functions that are outside of all of this, okay? So, let's see. Nassim says, hi, and says, rhythm is the same thing as melody. Kind of like the same thing, right? All of it's just sound after a while. But yeah, rhythm, that's a discussion that maybe we can have after all of this, okay? Okay, let's talk a little bit about harmony then. So if you know you have your D major key, your D major scale will be important, and this is why, because you have D major, right? And from each note of this scale will come a chord that serves a function, and that is the most important in functional harmony, right? So how do you create a chord? It's usually on thirds. for starting, and in that it's on major thirds or minor thirds. Remember, to create a major third, a major chord, sorry, you need, for example, a major third and then a minor third, and that is your construction of a major chord. Major third, minor third. The opposite for your minor chords. Minor third first, then the major third to complete. It's always to complete into the interval of the fifth. After a while, it's tonic, third, and then the fifth. So understanding that the fifth is always the same, especially on bass, will give you a lot of clues, because you already need to think more about the first third, the first minor third or major third, because the fifth will always be in the same place, the same fifth. Okay, so it's tonic, third, fifth, and that is actually your first function, your first grade of the construction of chords on top of the first note of the major scale. So you have horizontal knowledge, and that is melody, scale, and chords built on top from the same notes that are allowed from the key, from the scale. That means C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, D, C sharp, D. From those notes, you will reference into creating thirds on top and creating new chords. On creating chords from the first note, that is D, I'm going to go and say, okay, I need a third on top, and that corresponds to a major third. And then the fifth, and you complete your first chord. It's a major chord, D major chord. So the first chord of each key in major will be always a major chord, right? Then the second one, E. It will always be E minor, okay? It will always, the second grade will always be minor. In this case, it's E, G, B. Then you go F sharp. Again, it's minor, always minor. I'm just thinking about triads, then I'm going to think about it in 7 chords, if it is the case, okay? So the first one is major, the second one is minor, F sharp is, or the third grade is always minor. The fourth grade is always major, okay? The 4 and the 5 and the 1 are the most important. The 1 is the tonic, the 4 is the subdominant, the 5th is the dominant. Subdominant because it goes and it wants to go into more of the dominant, and the dominant is the second most important grade of all of this. So you have the 4th, it's always major, so recounting, the first is always major, second minor, third minor, 4th is major always, the 5th is always major, N is the dominant. This is the usual chord that will resolve into the tonic again. So that is why it's important. Main tension, okay? And if you add it with the 7th, it will have more tension even. We will talk a little bit about that later. So we're going up, and then you have your 6th. Your 6th grade is your tonic from the actual relative minor, and it's the 6th grade is always minor, and will be the 1st grade, and from the scale of B minor you will understand that this is the relative minor, and that is important because all these grades will still be present in the relative minor key, okay? So B and then finishing with C sharp, and the 7th, it's always weird because it's, by definition, if you follow up with the thirds, it will be 2 minor thirds on top of each other, and that creates this. A diminished chord is 2 minor thirds, okay? Always remember that a diminished chord is 2 minor thirds on top of them, and an augmented chord is 2 major thirds. Those are chords that are rather odd compared to the other ones, right? And we finish up with the same tonic. Those are the grades of D major, and that will help you understand all of what is happening in these things. Most of what is happening here, it has to do with grades and how we're playing with them after all, okay? So another important thing, I know this is hard probably, but I'm going to try to repeat it and maybe do a theory stream just on this and writing and all of that, but this is interesting, I would say. The first grade is always tonic, of course. It has that function. The second grade is always has function of subdominant, more similar to the fourth. The third is always has function of a tonic, more like the tonic, the D. The G always has a subdominant, and it's the first subdominant that you need to take care of. Again, the fifth is the dominant, most important tension into D major. The sixth, it has a function usually of tonic. You can interchange it with your tonic easily because there's just one note of difference. Okay, and your diminished is always kind of like it has a dominant function into, again, tonic. So after all of this is just tonic, subdominant, and dominant. In a way, this is just the most important theoretical aspect. You have resolution in tonic, coming into tension from subdominant, and tension from dominant. Those are important things to understand, okay? So how are we doing? Okay. Probably you already left from here. This is quite a serious thing, but this is important for me to understand and for you to understand. So I hope you see all of this. Okay. Thanks, man. I suck, so I'm going to practice. I'll be back for your beginner lessons. Yeah, I know that will going to happen now, but I understand it, and I have no problem with it. I just want to make more tools for you to understand things easily, okay? And this is important also. So let's move on. Nasim actually says, I love it if you did loads of jazz standards from the real books, even if they are looked down upon. I don't know why are they looked down upon. I don't know why. Maybe you can explain. Okay. Okay. So knowing that functions, knowing that, again, first grade tonic major, second grade minor subdominant, third grade minor tonic, fourth grade major subdominant, fifth grade major dominant, sixth grade tonic function minor, always minor, and the seventh, it's diminished and it has function of dominant. All of that will give you some understanding, and that will be always repeated in each key. So it's really important, I would say, to understand already. When you're messing up with seventh, this will make it a little bit different, but the functions will be the same. Okay, so it will be the major 7. Sorry. Then will be E minor 7, F sharp minor 7 again, and this will be the difference, because the fourth will be major 7, but the fifth will be minor 7, and that triton is the most important thing that goes from tension back into your D major, right? So the fifth with the seventh, it's always really important to modulate, to create tensions, to go into different realms, to create a lot of tension, to maybe resolve or maybe not resolve, and many things. Then you have your B minor 7 again, and finally half diminished into your tonic again. So the half diminished, it contains a minor 7. It's the same diminished with a minor 7. Okay, that comes naturally from the stacking of thirds on top of all of these notes from the key. Okay, we are already on notes from the key. We're not outside of the key. We're just messing up with the key. That is important. Then you can understand another thing that is important, and is what scales are implied from each chord. And from that, we're messing again with modes. And that is why modes are important, especially on this, because that will give you the idea of what scales can you play around with using the notes from the key. Okay, we're just in the notes from the key. I'm not even going to advance more because I need to work even more on that knowledge, but this is important. If you're in a D or tonic or 1 chord or first grade, you always go and play your Ionian or your major key, right? But this will not be the same case. Okay, it might be the same case. You can play D major and in all of these grades, and it will sound in tune. Okay, it will sound great, but it will not cover most of the harmony that you want to put up. It will not go into the same tensions that you need to develop for each chord to be understood in the context that it needs to. So that is why some people say, oh, it's in D major, so I can improvise like this throughout all the song. And that is not true most of the time. It will sound probably good. Yeah, you're not going out of anything. But you will not create the differences that you need to create. So it's better most of the time to understand, I'm in that chord, I need to apply more of that scale. And that is modes most of the time. Again, these are the modes that are implied from the key. Ionian or major key from the D. Then you go into E, and E minor, it's Dorian now. Dorian is the mode that comes after Ionian and will be used always in this E minor if it's played, right? For this case, I think we have E minor over here, right? So then we move up and we're going to Phrygian, and goes and all of this has different sounds into it. We're not just using major scale, we're using different scale for each chord, and that will give you more sound, different sounds. This sounds quite different, right? Because it's more into the flat second that will give you the idea of Phrygian. So this is important also. But for now, understanding Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, then you go into G and you now play Lydian. That is the mode that comes after, and it's always from the fourth note of the major scale, right? That is Lydian. With the raised fourth, that will make you the difference, okay? So it's, if you're in G, it's not just playing G major, it's actually playing G Lydian. That is the difference. Again, into A, if you think about this tension, you think about Mixolydian, and that goes into the seventh. That minor 7 will give you the idea of, or the flat 7 will give you the idea of Mixolydian compared to the major scale. Okay, and then you go into B minor, and that is the minor key that we all know. And you can actually go and play it more pentatonic or blues if you want. Right? And finally in C sharp you have the Locrian mode, and this is more exotic. It's just and finally back into major, okay? This is already important if you want to improvise, and that will be, all of this that I've been talking about will be your tools really to know how to improvise, to know how to go with the chord tones, and to create lines on top of all of this, right? Lines, improvisations, solos, all of that. So for me to say this is really important. So I hope some of you are tuned into this, because I mean, it will be recorded and will be always on the channel, but I'm going to develop all of this for you to understand. This is the way to going into improvising, to going into knowing music better, knowing the scales that come, the chords, the functions, all this theory, okay? So what do you think about this? Are you following it? Are you have some ideas on this? Please let me know, so I know that I'm doing it kind of like in a more pedagogical way. I don't know. Okay. It's looked down upon the jazz. Yeah, I know that usually, yeah, they are learned by ear, and I would recommend you also to learn it by ear, because after a while you just have to figure out the functions, and that those will be part of your language, and that will be interesting. I already kind of like know Autumn Leaves because I'm practicing. I kind of like know it by ear, just A minor 7, D major, D7, G, C, F sharp half diminished, B7, because I've been practicing it and it's interesting. Once you know it with the functions in it, you get more ear even of it. So yeah, I would say just memorize it probably, or apply it, and then kind of like get rid of it. Why not? Okay. Goodbye, Nassim. It's been a pleasure. Okay. Let's move on to this, just to finish up, okay? I'm going to finish up with this, then I'm going to even erase the title of lead sheet, so more people probably will come, I don't know. but I really wanted to talk about this, okay? Because now if we have some understanding of this knowledge that we were just talking about, looking at this will be really more easy to understand, okay? Because let's go with the chords, okay? You have your D, your tonic at the beginning, so it's right, and then you have A, and then you can figure out, okay, what is A from D, from the key of D? Okay, so we have a D, E, F sharp, D, E, F sharp, G, A, and you say, and you go through that process probably in your mind, or you can say just, this is the fifth chord, this is the 5 chord, this is the dominant, the main dominant, okay? So for that you already know the notes of it, you already know it's A, C sharp, E, you already know many things, you know the shapes, you know a lot of things that you need to practice and deposit already into the instrument to know. So I'm going to talk a little bit after all of the analysis about how to play this on bass, of course. So then you have the fifth, you have tonic again, you have this that implies you have a chord with the bass on a different note that is not the tonic. So it's D with the bass on E, on A, sorry. That means that is D with the bass on the fifth, and that is called second inversion, okay? Inversions on bass are important because that means that the bass is on a different note from the chord, not always the tonic. This is just tonic with no inversion. This would be first inversion because we're playing with the bass on the third. And finally, with the bass on the fifth is second inversion, and you already if you're already playing and messing up with seventh, you can have third inversion with the seventh on the bass, and that is I would say less common, a little bit more tension. All of these movements of bass of the bass note will create a different feel on harmony, so that is why it's important. You control your harmony with your bass because of this most of the time, because you know I can play 3 or 4 notes in the bass that will completely shift the way the chord is listened to, actually, okay? It will create more root, maybe more advance into other types of things, maybe more tension, maybe more dominant function tension, maybe more, I don't know, less function of tonic. You can figure out and converse about all of that with people, but at the end it's just moving the bass note and creating different voices, right? So this is the intro. It's not that difficult, just 1 5 1 5 1 5 1, then you go 1, and F sharp minor, it's the third from D, the third grade, right? So for that I'm already implying things. I'm implying this has tonic function. I can now use F sharp Phrygian in this chord, right? I know all of that because I've been practicing and whatever. 6th grade, B minor with the bass on A to create a transition into G, that is the 4th grade, subdominant, and this D with F sharp on the bass, the usual coming into the line. Look at this, B, A, G, F sharp, E, it all comes like this. So it's already creating a melody with your ideas of how to create inversions, okay? This is obviously how the song goes, but you can actually create your own melodies, creating different inversions. That is the most important thing also. If we were to play this without the inversions, it will be something like this. Sorry. That is. And we're covering the root note of this passage, right? So it's a say only fools rush in, or we can play it as it is. Wise men say only fools rush in, and that is quite different, right? Because you already have melody implied in this. It sounds really smooth. You're smoothly coming in and out of chords. It's not just jumping around like this. Okay? It also can be, but for most of the time you already need to think about creating lines, and that is why it's called a line. It's not called a jumping. It's called line because you need to create a melodic line that goes in the bass also, and for that you need to understand all of this, right? So then you have your A with the 7, with the flat 7, and that creates your maximum tension that goes sometimes back into the tonic, but for this case it just goes into subdominant, then again into dominant, and then it resolves not in the tonic but in a tonic function of the 6th grade. Then it goes into the second. Remember, you can use Dorian minor for this, always again with the bass on G, then different basses. Over here you have tonic, then your dominant function, and now it resolutes into your tonic, right? And that is the whole passage. So it's something like this. It's only fools rush in. I can't help falling in love. Sorry. With you. Right? Something like that. Those are the voicings, those are the harmonies that you will create in the melody. So I already know the notes of the chords, so I can just play around with this. Wise men say, right? I now can play with that because I know the notes for each chord and I can improvise around it, okay? So this is a lot of powerful knowledge and applied into creating things in the minute. So this is why it's important knowing some of this theory, okay? I know there's definitely not enough people in here that there should be, and I know it because this channel, right? This channel is just with dedication more into simple knowledge of beginner introduction, and I like that. I really like it. But this will give you into another level. If you're searching for the other level, I would say this would be the most important thing to understand, okay? How to manage with chords, how to manage with functions, how to manage with scales related to functions, etc., etc., etc. That will give you the push into it, I would say, okay? So I hope you're understanding all of this. Let's go into the B part and then we finish, because there's just the A part again and that's it. It's just 2 parts, right? In the B part there's always something different, and for this case it is, okay? We're starting with the 3rd grade, Okay, F sharp minor, and in this case it kind of like implies that we're in another key, especially for this tension. This tension, C sharp 7, is not part of the harmony of the key, because we already said this was implied into C sharp sorry, into C sharp diminished. If we look at the notes from the key, it's the 7th is C sharp diminished, not 7. It's not this, right? So we're having F sharp minor, right? So that is already different, and that tension, it's already made for creating a dominant for this, to creating a tension from this. So this is kind of like implying that it's a type of modulation, but it's not. It's called secondary dominance, right? And this is important because we're actually doing the dominant for this chord to create more tension into this chord, into this F sharp minor with the Phrygian feel, if you want, right? So F sharp minor goes into C sharp 7, and this C sharp 7 comes with the 7th that creates maximum tension into back F sharp minor again, right? So this is C sharp 7 you will find actually in keys like F sharp minor key. The F sharp minor key has a 5 that can be sharp C sharp 7 if you look at it with the maximum tension, that is the minor, the harmonic minor scale, right? So you're already implying some things. You're implying that this could be switched from F Phrygian into F sharp natural, that after comes into C sharp 7 that resolutes kind of like in a harmonic harmonic minor key for that. So all of that knowledge, again, it's important, but for now it's important to understand that this is not part of the key, that this is a dominant that comes into F sharp minor. Okay, so you can do that if you have a 1 and you decide to do a 5 of this chord. I could do this with any chord of the key if I wanted to, if the melody allows me, or if the song allows me. I could make a 5th from B minor, for example, and that would be F sharp 7 or F sharp major, right? And that is again not in the key, but it will be the dominant of B minor, and that will allow me to do more movements, to lead the melody into other parts, to create tension into that chord that resolutes into other chord that has another function. It's usually more put up into the chords that have the tonic function that I just told you. That will be first, the third, the sixth chords. They usually have some secondary dominant that kind of like pushes into that. So this repeats, then you have this, the third, and you now go into your B7, and that B7 again is not part of this harmony, right? Because you will have B minor, to be exact. You will have B minor in the 6th grade. You won't have B7. That B7 again should be a function that is dominant for other chords, and that is the case. This actually goes in and resolutes into E minor, and E minor is actually if you think about it, E minor has a dominant that is B7. Okay, if you go into the 5 chord of E minor, that will be B7. So this is just creating tension into E minor again, okay? And that is, we're creating tension into the second grade and finishing with the 5th of the tonic, the dominant, and now we're back into known grounds. That is the A. Same thing we already analyzed. And it finishes up, and that's it, okay? So that is the main way of how to look at this in different levels. First, important to know the chords, to know the notes that are compounded by those chords. Then knowing, importantly, with the same importance is knowing the grade of the chord that it has in function. The numeric and the Roman numeric, it's usual. The way of putting it, it's just the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chord, 7 chord of D. This is important. Knowing the key is important. And then you can actually go and think about the scales that can play good with all of this. And then you go and play and with that knowledge, with all of that put into your instrument. So for putting that into your instrument, you need to know first modes, you need to know scales, that is the same, kind of like the same thing. Then knowing arpeggios of this, for example, D major, F sharp minor. Practicing all of this. And it's just as easy to create the chord knowing the intervals. It's just doing something like this. D major 7, your 5th, and the octave. And that is the arpeggio, the notes, the chord tones played one after another. Arpeggios, scales, modes, and then just goes into you, okay? Into your own mind. And knowing all of this, you will be able actually to improvise, okay? In a contextual way, in a good way. You will be able to improvise bass lines that has good certain function of what it should be, right? So that is why I always kind of like skip it when people tell me how to improvise, because it's not simple, okay? There's no fucking magic trick of knowing how to improvise. How do I do it to improvise? What is the scale I do to improvise? What is the thing that I need to know? You need to know many things, man. Really many things. And I hope you understand it. But after a while, it's not many things. It's just a couple of things that are the same thing. And that is tension, melody, rhythm. Okay? That is whole. That is the whole of it. It's just studying a little bit, and then you will understand that you can now play with more broader aspects. You can play without thinking about, I need to learn this tab, because if I go out of this tab, I wouldn't know what to do. And that is the important thing. Just knowing the chords and messing around with it will give you a lot of language that is your language, okay? So that is the important thing, okay? I don't even know if you have some comments about this. I know this is not simple and it's not popular, but I don't really care now. I just wanted to do it for me and for you that are here, and this will come hard, okay? I'm not going to just make you tabs forever. I'm just going to make you push into your knowledge and trying to understand things differently. So now you can actually go and play whatever song that I have notated, and you will see that you can follow the song not just knowing the tablature but also knowing the chords that I write on top. And that is what I do. I just go play on whatever, I don't know, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I see the chords, and I just now can play whatever that is not in the tablature, that is not the same thing that he played. I can improvise. That is, okay? So Michael Berry has the reason, actually. Knowing scales are the key. Because from scales comes absolutely everything that it's built on top, okay? From the major scales come the idea of tension of the chords, the idea of the dominant functions, of all of that. It comes from the essence of the scale. The modes come from scales. All of this is scales, so scales important, for sure. As well as the notes on the fretboard. Yeah, because that is why you will try to understand it, right? Knowing what notes are. But after a while, I come to notice that knowing a lot of patterns will save you some time of knowing what notes they are. When I'm doing this, not all the time I'm thinking D, F sharp, A, D. I'm more like thinking about the pattern, right? I'm more like thinking about what are the things that I can do knowing the patterns, and that is no sin, I would say. For me, it's interesting because you can apply that into whatever context if you know the patterns of your scales. So you can think more about the feeling that you're getting and less about the notes that you're playing. I really doubt that whatever master of music or that understands all of these things, when he makes a solo or makes a walking bass line or whatever, they always thinking about, now I'm going to play F sharp, D sharp, whatever. No, I don't think so. Maybe most of the time it's knowing your ear, knowing your shapes, knowing your heart, and knowing your instinct most of the time, right? Because the harmony is there, you can actually sing it. If you can actually sing something, is most of the time really important because of that. Because you can sing your line, and by that definition, you can think about it without even executing it. So that is why it's important to sing. It's not because you need to develop good singing technique to play a good instrument. No, it's because of that. It's because singing implies that you're in your mind thinking about the notes that you need to play. And that is the important thing, again. So David CM asked me about, can you talk about the patterns for modes? And yes, I can. Okay, this is the way I always think about it for now. And you have the 7 modes, and of course for the Ionian, I'm just thinking, let's take for example again C, D. This is the most common pattern, and you should know it with finger 2, close position. You should know it with finger 1, with your 1 finger, open position, starting. And you should know it with your little finger. Those are the most important that will repeat throughout all the neck. And the open positions or first positions are really important for your open strings also. Using your open strings, right? This is just the major scale, Ionian mode. And then, again, as I said, try to think about all the other modes as if it were major or minor scales, but with alterations. And for that, for example, a pattern that I like and that my teacher actually have been telling me about this, it's for Dorian. Don't try to think about, okay, now I pick the major scale and go, sorry, and that is Dorian. No, because that will not make you think about new patterns. This will be a good idea. Think about this. So it's open position. It's mostly like you would play a minor scale. But with the raised sixth. Yeah. So the most important thing is that you can create your own patterns if you know this. And this is how my mind works. This is just subjective now, but this is how I take it. I'm always thinking on C. Okay, I'm never thinking about other keys but C most of the time in my mind to create all of this, to create the patterns. I'm thinking about C. So because C is more important, more easy to know since it has no alterations, right? So I'm thinking about if this is D major, I'm just thinking C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and you will understand it as it is in the same context, and you will create the same intervals because they are the same intervals. I will just think C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. I will just think D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D for Dorian. I will think in Spanish really, but that's why it's difficult. I will say re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, re, or D, E, F, A, B, C, D, C, D. So that is how I usually don't get lost with shapes for now. I'm just thinking about how it would sound if this was D and you create your D, F, G, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, right? So you in your mind just have to think about whole tones or semitones, basically. You just have to think, now I'm doing semitone or whole tone, and you just think D, E, F, G, A, B. So this 6 is different, C, D, right? That is how I'm thinking about it most of the time, and probably I won't think about it when I just memorize the shapes, okay? So this is a shape for Dorian. For Phrygian, you just go E, F, G, the same thing. Or you just think about a minor scale with the lowered second. So this is a minor scale, natural minor, and if you lower the second instead of this, you get Phrygian. That is the difference. Okay, so always think about minor or major keys, and always think about C, and that is my preference. I always try to think about it like it is C. So again, major scale, a minor scale but with the raised sixth. So that is why it's important, in parentheses, that is why it's important to know major and minor scales first. A minor scale but with the lowered second, Phrygian, right? A major scale but with the raised fourth is a Lydian. Right? Again, I'm never going out of the notes that are in the key. At the same time, all of this is just giving me the clues that I need, and that the clues that I just need is thinking about, okay, I'm playing the notes that are in the key of D. F sharp and C are sharps. F and C are sharps. So I'm never getting lost. I have too much information to not to getting lost really. But I like patterns because it's easier to remember them, right? So again, for Lydian is major scale as usual, but in this case we're raising the fourth to create this. It sounds really different, right? Moving out for the Mixolydian scale, or again think about a major scale, but with the lowered seventh or the flat seventh. Okay, I'm moving, but this could be just played from the same note. That is an example that I'm going to make later when I finish this. B again, I mean for the Aeolian scale or natural, you already know it. I hope you know it. It's just think about A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Sorry. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Right? Minor scale. Aeolian. Natural minor, the same thing. And finally, for your Locrian is a little bit more difficult because it's like a minor scale, but you have, again, lowered second like Phrygian, but you had a lowered fourth also. No. It's like a minor. Yeah, it's like a minor, but with a lowered second and fourth or 11th, I don't know. Right, that is. Okay, so if we play from C, all of these scales are just with the same pattern like this. This is C major. This is C minor natural. And those are the two important, right? Then you have from minor, you have C minor pentatonic. Or C major pentatonic. C major pentatonic, C major, major pentatonic, minor, minor pentatonic, minor pentatonic blues, minor blues, with blues with more alterations. Then you have minor harmonic minor with the raised 7. With the raised 6 and 7 you have melodic minor. That usually comes in as melodic and goes back as natural. And then you have the crazy thing, the modes, right? So this is C Ionian or major. This is C Dorian, coming from the minor key, raised 6. This is C Phrygian, lowered second, coming from the minor shape of minor key, minor scale, but with a flat second. This is the C Lydian, like a major scale, but with the raised fourth. Or this is the C Mixolydian with the flat 7, like a major scale but with a flat 7. Right? Aeolian again, or minor. And finally Phrygian, like a minor but with a flat second and fourth. I'm not quite sure of this, I think, but yeah, I know the I'm not sure of the definition, but I'm quite sure of the shape. It's just like this. And that is everything, okay? Those are the scales that are important for you to understand. So yeah, I would recommend you to play all of that in C and knowing a little bit of what is coming through in change, right? I'm going to try to give you some material on all of this all the time, okay? I'm going to try to explain it until it's easier to digest. So don't worry about it. It will not be the first time that I'm going to talk about all of this. And that's it. That's it about the more I would say advanced in things. I don't know if it's advanced. It's just different knowledge. Okay. You just have to go through it and not think about it as it's your enemy or something like that. It was quite interesting for me as people understood that I'm not going to talk about that much about practicing in this stream, and people already left. that is funny, really funny. But yeah, if you have some more other questions now, I can attend to them, and then we are finished. Okay. But this was more of a theoric stream for sure. So Washburn Taurus, yes, this is a Washburn Taurus. I'm unsure if you're still watching. I boiled my strings maybe 2 times, but I changed my string as soon as the tone's dead. I play Ernie Bowles. Great. So I do change my strings, answering to Jane England. I change it about once a month. I change all the strings. I've done the different boiling things and all of that, but I change them monthly because usually I have to prepare things that need more clarity in the execution, and they need fresh strings. I gotta say, most of the time I like a little bit more the sound of not completely dead strings, but a little less new strings. For that, you just need to play, and that's all of it, right? It just depends on what you want, really, on your tone most of the time. Maybe you want more clarity, more sharpness, more like piano sounding, piano string sound. You need new strings for sure. If you want to sound like Flea, or to sound like Justin Chancellor or Tool, or you want to sound like more metal or more modern, usually go with new strings and quite bright. Okay. I don't know if we have more questions. I'm going to just play for a while. But I hope you liked the thing that I did. It was quite a good understanding for my opinion too, for trying to get more clear on all of those things that I know they have a lot of value, right? What do you tune your amp at? I tune mine with max mins about 3/4 high and shift about 3 again low right now. Great. I usually don't have an amp, and that is the thing that I was just talking about. I don't mess with amps all the time. What I do is messing with digital amps, and that is kind of like the same thing. After a while, it's just knowing what are the functions of equalization that you're having, and knowing that depending on the context, you will need more treble to get that sound, less to get that sound. Okay, so I don't know. For more slappy, funky things, I usually lower down a little bit of the mids, go with more treble, go with more bass. If I want to sound more vintage, I cut down a little bit of the treble, more bass, a little bit more middles, more rock, more grungy sound rock, usually a lot of middles, pop sound, usually with lots of low end and high end. It depends on really on many things, many things. Lily, I do have my face in the band channel if you want to check it out, but I can't promise you anything really. I'm not that great. But I don't do it because of you know the deal. I don't do it because I'm ashamed or something like that. It's just that I want more attention in the instrument. And you can search the channel of the band, and I actually have a video called 200,000 stream or something like that here in the channel. And that's it. Hello Nassim, I think you're here to go because I'm kind of like finishing this up. I don't know if you have some doubts about anything that I've been talking about. You can let me know, okay? In the meantime, I'm just wanting to play something related to I don't know. Let's say I'm going to play something in different modes. Let's do that. I'm going to play something with just Ionian, A Ionian. Now with a major pentatonic. Now with A minor. Now with A minor pentatonic. A minor blues. Now A Dorian. Let's see what we can do. Now with how can I do something with a Phrygian? Maybe something like more metal. Something like with a Lydian? No, I'm going with a yeah, Lydian. Okay. Let me think about that a little bit more. You have that. Maybe with something like this. Mixolydian. Well, minor, I already did something. With Phrygian, I don't have no idea, really, for now. But yeah, you can play something with around some scales, too. Okay, do I have no more questions now, or are we leaving? Thank you for your lessons. Thanks to you, Vesamrak, Lily Baydon. Thanks for your hearts. Same for Swaggy McDivil nice name. He's the next flea. I don't know, man. I really doubt it. Yeah, Nassim is the next flea. He knows it. Do something slap with a flamenco strumming technique mixed in. Something like that. I'm really lying about it. I have no idea about flamenco. Okay, what else? Okay, that's too much, Lily. Please compose yourself. Okay, that's enough. Okay, I think we're a little bit out of the sound now. So thanks so much for being here. I'm gonna do tomorrow something in Spanish. Probably I'm going to kind of like replicate the same lecture I did with this, with the Elvis Presley song, and trying to analyze something about it. Yeah, I think something like that. Okay, so begin with saying goodbye and thanks for being here as usual. Okay, I'm going to leave and I'm going to be around probably next week doing some transcriptions for sure, doing some of these same things, and that's it. Okay, guys. Thanks to you guys for being here. So goodbye.